Hey everyone, Monday, June 8th, can you believe it? Week 11 for me as far as, I don't want to say exile, but sometimes it feels like that. No, God's good. We're able to do a lot of things that we never thought we were able to do, and we're thankful for that. So I'm going to give the COVID-19 update. I'm not going to give you numbers today. I'm going to kind of reiterate what I heard at the I have a webinar every week from our bank, and if you can believe it or not, our investment portfolio guys do the best COVID-19 stuff that around. So they're really up to date with it. They follow the Johns Hopkins website and they give their analysis of it. So Brazil right now is number one in recent COVID cases. They're number two of the cumulative total. The U.S. has 28.5% of the total cases, which happens to be going down a little bit. And the U.S. has more cases than Brazil, Russia, Spain, United Kingdom, and India combined. The U.S. also has 28% of the total deaths, and that also is down. The test results are pretty much the same, one positive result for every 10 tests in the United States. And they're finding out that many more people may have had COVID-19 and may be immune. Transmission might be harder to stop than thought, and mortality rates are also lower than thought, which means that a lot of people who are sometimes healthy are able to survive it. Economic activity continues to slowly pick up as restrictions are eased in different states. Evidence is suggesting that we've seen the worst of the economic fallout as 2.5 million jobs were added during the month of May, which is a good sign. Full recovery, though, is expected not to be reached until at least the end of 2021. Still no serious spike in the regions that may have relaxed lockdown, and the social unrest in the country may create a risk of a second wave of the virus. That will be determined maybe 2 weeks down the road. The likelihood of a vaccine has increased as more companies are moving into phase 3 of their testing. So that's it for the COVID-19 update. Pretty much a lot of good news. I did want to address a little bit about the George Floyd situation and racism. I kind of learned early on when I was a kid, believe it or not. I was kind of oblivious to a lot of stuff. And then when I was like 13 years old, I was allowed to be hired as a farm worker on the Eastern Shore. I lived in Preston, Maryland, a lot of agriculture. And that was one of my first jobs, was working in the fields, picking watermelons, cantaloupes, cucumbers, tomatoes, all kinds of stuff. And when we were hired, a truck would come through the town. These guys lived in Baltimore, and they either owned the land down there or rented. I don't remember offhand because I was only 13. And they would pick us up and take us out to the fields, and we would work. We would work as a group of about 10 of us in a field, say picking tomatoes. And then we'd look over in another field, and there were African-American workers separate from us working in another field. What I didn't realize at the time, or what I found out later on, and it was during that time period, it's not like way down the line, was the amount of pay that they were getting compared to the amount of pay that we were getting. They were paying us in 1969 $5 an hour, which was a lot of money for a 13-year-old kid. What they called the migrant workers, the African-American workers, were being paid 30 cents for a basket, whether it be tomatoes or cucumbers. I'm not sure what they were paid for cantaloupes. I think cantaloupes was by the basket, watermelons was not. But 30 cents a basket as opposed to $5 an hour, which means it would take a lot of baskets before you equal $5 an hour. So alarm went off in my head and saying, something's not right here. Something's not copacetic, as they say. And, being a pastor's kid, but not a Christian, it said something to my soul that there was something wrong. And then later on, when we were driven past where they stayed and lived, it became even more apparent that there was such an inequity there. So I felt the inequity back then when I was 13 years old. But did I do something about it? Not really. And did I do something about the Black Lives Matter and people dying and not even thinking about it, always thinking, oh, they must have done something wrong or things like that? Well, that all changed when I think the first was Ahmaud Arbery. getting shot for jogging and getting shot for maybe looking inside a construction site. I've even done that. And there may have been cameras, who knows? But that's what he was shot for. And the more stories that come out about that, the worse the story gets. And then George Floyd and the inexcusable murder of him by a police officer. And that kind of took it over the top for me. So having a daughter who lives in Alabama, who is leaving Alabama in a couple of years because of, you know, the racism down there, that's still, it's still there. It's just kind of under the table now, not as evident. One of the pleasures I had, and I really wanted to go to the lynching museum down there. And I went down there. That's not the exact name of it, but that's what they call it. And just seeing all that, and that really had an impact. And then driving to Selma and going across the Pettus Bridge with my daughters and talking to them about, you know, what had happened there. And kind of we ignored it back when it happened, but now it has more and more meaning. So we can all change. This is just really impacted me a lot and got me to thinking back in those days when the inequities were there and we just felt like we couldn't do anything about it. Well, now the time is to do something about it. So that's my little talk about that, because it has impacted me a great deal. And I just appreciate you listening to that. Not really a COVID-19 update, but I think it's pertinent to the times that we live in. So I hope you all have a great week, and I'll talk to you again on Thursday.